Hello, good morning. It is Tuesday, December 10th. I am Rob, also known as that developer dad. And the post that I just made on Twitter and Blue Sky about this stream kind of gives you some clues about what we are going to talk about today. And namely, in writing software, we are constantly having to search data storage for specific instances of whatever objects we've stored there. And so when we're first starting out on our development journeys, we tend to load up whatever class is responsible for querying the database with get by this, like get by ID, get by name, get by location, so on and so forth. And that is an evil pattern of infinite evil. Because what happens is when we're searching for specific or groups of objects by specific attributes of those objects, the programming surface for our access components tends to get wider and wider and wider over time. And then if we remove an attribute or we change the way an attribute works, it's a disaster. And it's an ugly, yucky, bloody pain in the neck to have to deal with. Excuse me. So, what do we do about it? Well, we can, instead of doing the get by ID or get by name or whatever, we can introduce something a little bit more generic called a filter. And for some reason, my Visual Studio Code has lost its darn mind. Let's open the solution and see if that opens. I'll share my screen in a moment. No, I'm going to have to restart VS Code. It went cuckoo, which happens from time to time. Here we go. Here's the solution exploder. Let's build it. All right, it builds. And just before I do the screen share and jump in, I'm going to top up my coffee. Because it's empty and a little cold. So bear with me for just a minute. And then I will very quickly review the changes I made outside of the stream yesterday. Because I worked a little later last night on this thing because I wanted to get some stuff done. And then we'll dive into filtering. All right, here we are. I will share my screen. And let's, you know what? I am going to drill into the location of this thing on my console, and we're just going to run it directly from the Mac console here so that you can see all the log messages and all that yummy goodness here on screen instead of let me pull this down just a scooch. Here we go. Now you should be able to see stuff. Actually, that's the stupid way. That's the silly way. I'm going to come over here instead of doing that, let's try that. Maybe? No, that didn't work either. Oh well, what can you do? I'll just pull this down so that you can see that window. All right, and where's my terminal? Here it is. And we just go /test console. I have to spell it right. And it does all the things. And off it goes. So we have all of our application build-up stuff, the module provider, etc., etc. My account manager creates all of our access components successfully, creates the account manager successfully. We get the proxy, and we see that loading the user identity took a little less than a second. The load user account took about 283 milliseconds. And the whole shebang took about a little more than 1.25 seconds. And we got all of my stuff for my account. So cool. There was just a couple of little bugs in the user account access component. I was calling the wrong method when I wanted to get a user account that may or may not exist. What I was calling was get entity async, and I should have been calling get entity if exists async. Because get entity async, if it gets a 404, it actually throws an exception. This just says if it's not there, it returns null. So that's the way we want to use that. And I'm trying to get my screen shared and not look ridiculous. It's okay. All right, so that's that. Now, where I want to talk about using this filter, and it's a little bit silly and contrived at this point on the static catalog provider, because I've only got 2 things in my catalog right now. But this concept will work for just about any collection. Because we're going to use link. And so we've got all this stuff, confers membership in, allowed statuses, etc., blah, blah, blah. And then get free subscription grants. That's just setting up the things that are granted with the subscription. But up here in filter, we want to be able to bring back a list of subscription items. So, and we want to do it flexibly instead of get filter by SKU or get filter by this, get filter by that, so on and so forth. And right now we've just got a string array for the filter. We're going to change that in a minute. So to do this, I am going to come into my IFX, my application framework, and I'm going to create a new folder called Collection Utilities. And inside Collection Utilities, create a new file called, excuse me, filter. Oh, it's got to be a class. I'm going to call it filter. Now this filter needs criteria. So we're going to add another class called filter criteria. And that criteria is going to have string, prop, property name, string, property name, string, operator kind, prop, object, expected value. Now this is starting to look really, really, really familiar. About a month or so ago, I was dabbling with a little something, and it's in this components rules project over here. So let's take a peek at this guy for a little bit before we dig in. So we've got our rule definition, and this is really very, very very customized to running running rules against instances of objects. So we've got rules access, rule definition, so on and so forth. Rules access, abstractions, utility tests, validation engine tests. And let's shrink that up. And I believe it's all in, no, it's not in validation engine, but let's take a look at rules utility. Excuse me. So we've got a rule expression, and it's got operator kinds, operator base, evaluation strategy, rule expression, evaluate, so on and so forth. And what this does is this looks at an object. So let's say we've got this sample class, my class. It's super derivative. It's just got name, birth date, age, and the age is a calculation, right? And if we come back to program, we've got Arthas, Anu, and Rin. We've got another one, Garage Hellscream. Oh wait, that's a rule? No, those are just subjects. So we've got our subject type name and our property name and the property type name and all this stuff. And then we set up these rules, right? And then we build the rules, and then we execute the different rules against our subjects. I'll show you. And we're just going to run it as C#. Remind me later. C#. And we're just going to do that. And so our rules have executed. Now we're going to use the same kind of concept as we use for this rules engine over in our filtering stuff. So we need this operator kinds. And this operator base is going to take in all of this stuff. We have type strategies, register known type strategies, etc., etc., etc. This is all very programmy, algorithm-y stuff, right? So let's just take a look at these operator kinds. And I'm just going to steal this. Shoop. Copy. We'll pull that over here because we're good there. Now, filter criteria, collection utilities, filter criteria, add a new file. It's going to be an enum ACK. The other Visual Studio Code had focus. And new file, enum, operator kinds. And I'm just going to grab this, do that, save. Are we using explicit? Okay, we're not using implicit usings. Good, good, good. Those drive me crazy. Filter. Let's save that. So here's our filter criteria. It's very, very basic. And equals string dot empty. Equals default. Equals operator kinds dot equals. Let's just set a default. There we go. So now our filter criteria is valid. Something's complaining. There we go. All right. So we've got our filter criteria. Now our filter is going to have private, read only, list of filter item. No, filter criteria. Filter criteria. Okay. Filter criteria equals new list of filter criteria. And let's see. Does filter want to be abstract? Because we are going to turn this into a generic class. Let me think. Excuse me. Thinking. Think, instead of making it generic, I'm going to go filter subject type. I don't need that extraneous parenthesis. And I'm going to say private read only type filter subject type. Now that could get us in trouble. As a matter of fact, I know it's going to get us in trouble because if I want to expose an API that accepts a filter for, say, let's shrink that for a second. If I expose an API that accepts a filter for customer profile, that's really only useful for the account manager contracts customer profile type. All right. And it doesn't do us any good to be trying to filter on customer profiles when we get up to, say, the user account. And we'll just look at the abstractions for this. And we have, where is it? And we're dealing with user account resources. Yes, some of the properties map just by name, maybe, but they're not going to be carbon copies of each other. And over time, these models are going to diverge from each other. So we're not going to do anything about that right at this second, but we're going to have to come up with a solution to that part of the puzzle. For now, let's just do this against specific types. So our filter is this. And we can do this explicitly with mapping filters of different types from one manifestation of a domain type to another, to another, to another. We can do that manually with extension methods. But for now, let's just keep it simple. And what I want to do is public string to string, public override string to string, returns the filter and its criteria as a simple string. Easy peasy, right? So, string builder SB equals new. We're going to give it an initial value of, we have to assign filter subject type. Do a little bit of interpolation magic. Filter for filter subject name. And then for each sb.append criteria.toString. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to string criteria description equals, and we're going to use some interpolation magic. Criteria, criteria dot property name, operator kind, and that's an enum, so we got to call a toString on that. Operator kind. Oh, nonsense, it doesn't. Let's bring my framework back. Operator kinds, filter criteria. Oh, operator, duh. And with string interpolation, it implicitly calls toString criteria dot expected value. And we're just going to append line, not append, criteria description. And I did the string assignment or string building for the criteria description here because I didn't want to stuff all of this goop into one line of code here. And all we're going to do is return string builder.toString. Cool, huh? And that's going to be enough for now. I'm going to spin down to our program. And right up here, before I do anything, I'm just going to say test filter class. All right. And I'm going to pop down, I guess, here we go. Static void test filter class. And I'm going to say filter equals new. And I'm going to say type of devdad sasadmin catalog abstractions and subscription template. Let's just close that up for now. And I'll say filter dot not add table service client. Absolutely not. So we got to come up here to filter and create a way to add new criteria. Let's say public void add criteria. String property name operator kinds operator and object expected value. Filter criteria, new criteria equals new, and it's just a default constructor. And we're going to add that new criteria. Easy peasy. Bop out here. Filter dot add criteria, name of, you know what? I don't like this. I don't like this at all. because I'm going to be typing those namespace names until I'm blue in the face. New folder, other tests. New file class is going to be a filter tests. Public static void test filter class. Let's pop back out to program CS, grab this, cut it, paste it, do that, save here, get rid of that, other tests dot filter tests dot test filter class. And then when we're done testing our filter class, we can return. There. Yeah, I know none of that code's going to execute anymore until we get rid of this. Get rid of this once the filter class is tested. And yeah, I could write unit tests and all that stuff, but I honestly, I can't be arsed at this point in time because I just want to make sure that it prints out the way I want it to. And let's do this. Console.writeLine. Testing the filter class. Console.writeLine. Filter.toString. That's all we want to do right now. Let's run this bad boy and see what happens. It's FAFO development here at my house. Testing the filter class, filter for subscription template. Beautiful. I dig it. And the programmer did grin. And I can get rid of all of this crap. And import that namespace. Bam. Filter dot add criteria. Name of subscription template dot SKU. Operator kinds dot equals. And let's actually come into our catalog and take a look at this. I haven't reduced these to constants yet. I may not. Refactor. Introduce constant. All occurrences, yes. And let's rename this. TDMF paid SKUs. MTHLY. MNTH. All right. And up here, I'm going to introduce this constant, refactor, introduce constant for all occurrences. This guy, we're going to rename the symbol to skews TDMF FR. Save. We're going to make these public because I'm sure I will need them elsewhere. Okay, so there's that. Filter tests, and I want to go static catalog provider dot free. Not Copilot. I know you're trying to be helpful, but you're being the opposite of helpful. All right, save, run it. So, testing the filter class, filter for a subscription template, SKU equals DM familiar free. And I feel like in my filter.toString, I need to append a line because I don't want these all running along. Here we go. Beautiful. Testing the filter class, filter for subscription template, SKU equals 1, 2, 3, 4, int line number equals 0, line number plus plus, string spacer equals save. Run it again. There we go. Now let's come back out to our filter tests and we'll add one more criteria. Filter.add criteria, name of subscription template dot SKU, operator kinds dot, and let's actually use a different property than SKU. Dot name, dot renewal period less than and let's say 100. Terminate that, run it. That toString doesn't feel very good, does it? Oh, because I didn't add the spacer. Try it again. There we go. Okay, so we've got a nice little outputty display thing for our stuff, right? I can close that. Filter tests, we're good for now. Now, what we need to do is shrink that up. Public void, add criteria. And so our filter subject type, not so great, because we're going to need to do some type manipulation here. Excuse me. So public IEnumerable no, not yet. We're going to make this abstract. Public class filter of T. It's going to inherit filter. Do that. And public IEnumerable T, apply filter IEnumerable of T collection. And var filtered equals new list of T for now. Return filtered and filtered dot add range collection. I just want to make sure I can call it. All right. So instead of filter, blah, 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 I'm going to say new filter of subscription template. Now this filter hasn't got apply. Watch this. Filter dot apply. It's not there. So that means I'm going to have to come up here. And say public abstract enumerable of T, apply filter T. There we go. And what are you complaining about? Does not implement, oh yeah, that's right, public override. Fine. Implement abstract. Where T1 is T. Where T is a class. I really wish we had discriminated types. Excuse me. Is it all? This feels icky. This feels really, really, really gross. Let's get rid of that. And instead of enumerable, no, because it's going to untype our objects. Let's make that go bye-bye. Public type obtain. Hey, how's it going? See films? Generic filter type. This might be silly. We're going to create a factory method. Now, I feel like I'm peeing into the wind here. That's the wrong way. I'm just going to have to go. Let's get rid of that. File save. Come out to filter tests and do this. Filter of subscription template. filter, spell template correctly, dot apply filter, static catalog provider dot get catalog. I'm going to need to add that to the static catalog provider, no problem. Catalog access. I'm also going to need an instance of that catalog provider. No, I'm not. Let's open this up. So here's that. I'm going to say public static list of subscription template. I'm going to change that to IEnumerable. Subscription template get catalog. And I'm just going to return populate catalog. Var CP equals new static catalog provider, return CP dot populate catalog. That'll do. Whatever. So there's that. Var collection equals static catalog provider dot get catalog. There we go. Call filter dot toString console dot write line var filtered equals filtered dot count. It's not going to filter anything yet because we haven't actually done anything with the apply filter. And let's do a little bit of interpolation here. Say filtered count. Give us a blank line just for readability. Right line. Run it. Do, 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 do. We are almost out of time for this morning, but that's okay. So our filtered count is 2. That's fine. Apply the filter. So we're up in here. I still don't like the way I'm having to call this. That's goofy. I suppose I could do it like this. But as long as we've got that exposed generic type, we're going to be struggling with this mess. Like, this works, but it doesn't work the way I want it to. Not even close. But let's get the mechanic and the goal of the filter down first before I start trying to figure out how to smooth the DevX on it. pop back into apply filter. And when we pick up, we need to combine the criteria we've configured into a single link statement. We'll abuse some reflection and the expression tree to do this. We'll do that this afternoon. And that's where I'm going to leave us for now. Or perhaps I'll actually implement it and just talk through it this afternoon, because anytime I got to do this, I've done this over and over and over and over again during the past 15 years or so. And every time I write this, I have to figure it out all over again. By adding this to my system framework, I'm going to have it in a nice little tidy place where when I need it, I can go get it. And that's going to make me grin. That's going to make me a very, very happy guy. Okay, yeah. It's that. Because it's all going to be wrapped up in a nice little bow down here in collection utilities. So I am going to say good morning to you. Thanks for joining me, C Films. I'm going to end this morning's stream. I have some LinkedIn messages to reply to and see if those turn into either a collaboration or a help another architect slash developer session or what have you. Still looking for paid work. That's going to be fun. This project is going to get really, really fun this afternoon because I'm going to build a generic collection filter that you can apply to basically any custom object in your project and get rid of the need to have things like get movies by title, get movies by director, get movies by year, all of that stuff. Because what we're going to be able to do is build a strongly typed, and granted, this isn't for PHP, but I bet you can do the same kind of thing with some thought. In .NET, we've got LINQ, which stands for Language Integrated Query. And we've got some reflection, which is going to let us look at the types that we want to filter and build a dynamic collection filter, basically, that with a single line of code, or it'll look like a single line of code, just goes boop, applies all of your criteria, which is totally flexible because it's just a list of criteria, to your entire collection and returns what's filtered. Yeah, I know you developed a movie website. We've talked about it a little bit in the past, C Films. But I've run this against, or I've had this translate into T-SQL. I've built versions of this that translate into SQL. I've built versions of this that translate into dynamic link so that I can work it against collections of objects that are already in memory. I'm excited to try and apply this to Azure Table Storage. And I've done something similar against Mongo. And I believe when you query something from those document databases, when you get them back, or when you query them into your application space from Mariah, do you get them as JSON and then have to deserialize them into instances of your classes? Or do they get deserialized automatically by whatever Mariah connector you're using? C Films? Because I know some places you got to do the deserial, or with some databases you have to do your deserialization manually. Um, other database systems you have to use, or you can get your objects back fully hydrated and strongly typed in whatever language you're using. I'm not sure how Mariah works. Is it at all like Mongo in that respect? Where if it doesn't arrive as a fully hydrated object of type, you can very quickly convert it from whatever the Mariah document object is into an instance of your type. Okay, so Mariah is SQL. So you get back rows and columns or records or whatever. So you grab your records and then rehydrate those into object instances. Okay. I haven't considered working this over a data reader type thing that just basically iterates over the rows that satisfy the query. Um, but I bet it can be done. Code's pretty flexible like that. But I got to bounce. I've got some things to look after. I'm going to go ahead and start implementing this stuff. Okay, gotcha. Gotcha. So you fire in standard SQL statements, it kicks back a result set, you iterate over the result set and turn it into the objects you need or what have you. Okay, cool. I thought Mariah was a NoSQL database for a while. I haven't looked into it at all. Um, but I'm going to be back this afternoon, and we'll keep working on getting rid of this get by property mess that it's so easy for all of us to fall into while we're writing our while we're fulfilling our requirements. So thanks for joining me, C Films. Good luck with your project. It's early for you, dude. It's like 8 o'clock. Granted, I've been unemployed for 7 months, so 8 o'clock in the morning is like, oh, for me. I've gotten lax in getting up on time. But I'll be back this afternoon. Until then, take care of yourselves and happy coding. Cheers, all.